It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. You are listening to The Deep Dive. And look, I hope you've had your coffee, maybe double shot, because today we are absolutely not waiting in the shallow end. We're looking at a stack of sources that feels less like a standard news update and more like the first chapter of some sci-fi novel that just became real this morning.
It really does feel that way. It's
Yeah.
coming through the files. You've got financial reports from Bloomberg, political updates out of D.C., tech specs from Apple, and there's just this overwhelming sense of tectonic plates shifting. It's not just news happens. It feels like the rules of the game are fundamentally changing.
Exactly. We're talking about the biggest corporate merger in history involving Elon Musk. We're talking a potential capital war, which
Yeah.
sounds terrifying, by the way, and even, believe it or not, the price of your Doritos finally coming down.
It's such a strange mix, isn't it? The massive and the mundane. On one side, you've got Musk doing what looks like the ultimate consolidation of power in space and AI. And at the same time, we have families building tiny homes in their backyards just to afford a place to live.
So if we had to slap a label on today's deep dive, if we're trying to find that thread connecting a trillion-dollar rocket company to a bag of chips, what is it?
I'd call it consolidation and correction. I mean, we are seeing the big players, whether it's in tech, the food industry, or the government, making these massive sweeping moves to adjust to a new reality, one that has changed faster than anyone expected. They're either consolidating power to survive, or they're correcting prices because the consumer finally snapped.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we have to start with the headline that is absolutely dominating every single feed right now. Elon Musk. It feels like we talk about him a lot, but this is different.
It felt inevitable, in a way, but the scale of it is what really shocks you.
The news break that SpaceX has officially acquired xAI, Musk's artificial intelligence startup. And the numbers, I mean, they make my eyes water.
They are staggering. We are looking at a combined entity valued at $1.25 trillion. And to break that down for you, SpaceX is carrying the bulk of that at a cool $1 trillion valuation, and xAI is being valued at $250 billion.
That makes it the biggest merger of all time. But here's the question I think everyone's asking, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Why? Why merge a rocket company with a chatbot company? Is this just, financial engineering to juice the valuation before that big SpaceX IPO later this year?
Well, that's certainly part of it. I mean, beefing up the portfolio before going public in 2026 is a classic move. But if you look at the blog post announcing the deal, Musk used a very specific and kind of weird phrase: orbital data centers.
Orbital data centers. Okay, that sounds cool, like something out of Star Wars. But practically, why put a server in space? I mean, space is harsh, you've got radiation, no air for cooling. Isn't it just way cheaper to build a data center in, say, Texas?
You would think so. But consider the two biggest bottlenecks for AI right now: energy and heat. On Earth, we are literally running out of power grid capacity. We just can't build power plants fast enough to feed these models. In orbit, you have unlimited solar energy, 2047, with no atmospheric interference. And while managing heat in a vacuum is tricky, you don't have the ambient heat of a Texas summer to deal with.
So the play is use Starlink to beam the data up, process it with infinite solar power, and then beam the answers back down.
Precisely. It creates a vertically integrated system that is literally off-planet.
Wow.
It's space-based internet feeding space-based AI. It removes the terrestrial constraints of the energy grid. It's a bet that the future of compute isn't on the ground at all.
That is bold. It basically bypasses national borders and power grids entirely. But he's not the only one throwing cash around in this space. We saw Alphabet, Google's parent company, just dumped a truckload of money into Waymo.
Right. Waymo raised another $16 billion. They are now valued at $126 billion. So while Musk is looking at the stars, Alphabet is really doubling down on the roads. It's a good reminder that the AI race isn't just one lane, it's everywhere.
And speaking of lanes, I saw some rumors flying around about NVIDIA and OpenAI. There was some talk that their relationship was on ice. Is there any fire to that smoke?
Jensen Huang, the NVIDIA CEO, he went on CNBC specifically to squash that. He said there's no drama, and even confirmed NVIDIA is investing in OpenAI's next funding round.
Which is huge, considering OpenAI is looking to raise at a $500 billion valuation. But I want to pivot for a second. We talk about these trillion-dollar valuations, but how does this actually hit the ground for the person listening who writes code or builds products? Because Apple dropped an update to Xcode, that sounds like it changes the actual job description of a developer.
This is significant, yeah. Apple's new Xcode update introduces what they're calling agentic coding. It uses Anthropic's Claude and OpenAI's Codex.
I've been hearing this term vibe coding thrown around on social media. It sounds ridiculous. What does that actually mean?
It sounds funny, I know, but it describes a very real shift. Vibe coding just means the human provides the vibe, the prompt, the intent, the architectural idea, and the AI agent writes the actual syntax.
So we're moving from coding to directing.
That's the perfect way to put it. You aren't a bricklayer anymore. You're the architect. The barrier to entry drops, but, and this is key, the requirement for clear thinking goes way up. You have to know exactly what you want the machine to do, even if you don't write the loop yourself. It changes the skill set from memorizing syntax to managing systems.
Okay, so tech is booming, mergers are happening, the future is here. But then I look at the markets today and the S&P 500 tumbled nearly 1%. The Dow dipped. If the news is so big, why is the market so sad?
It's a rotation. Investors are pulling money out of tech, maybe taking some profits from those massive valuations we just discussed, and they're looking for safety. Because outside of Silicon Valley, the geopolitical picture is getting, well, it's getting dark. And that brings us to Ray Dalio.
Right. Ray Dalio always seems to know when the storm clouds are gathering. He was at the World Government Summit in Dubai, and he used a phrase that sent a chill down my spine. Capital war.
It is a heavy term, and he's warning that we are on the brink.
But what does a capital war actually look like? Are we just talking about sanctions?
Think bigger than just sanctions. A capital war is about weaponizing the financial rails of the entire world. It looks like trade embargoes, sure, but it also looks like blocking a country's access to capital markets, freezing their assets, implementing foreign exchange controls so money can't even leave a country.
So if you're a nation state, your bank account could just get turned off.
Exactly. Dalio pointed out that central banks and sovereign wealth funds are already making provisions for this. They are preparing for a world where their money might get trapped or seized. They are essentially moving their money under the mattress.
If the big money is scared that their digital dollars might get frozen, where do they go? What is the global equivalent of a mattress?
They go to the one thing that has no counterparty risk.
Oh.
Gold. Dalio reiterated his support for gold as a diversifier, and we saw that play out in the markets today. After a big sell-off recently, both gold and silver rebounded. It's the classic safe haven when the geopolitical temperature rises.
So you have the ultimate high-tech future with Musk and the ultimate ancient safety net with gold, both rising at the same time.
It's a paradox, isn't it? Innovation and fear running side by side.
It's interesting you mentioned the temperature rising because it feels like the consumer economy is also reaching a boiling point. We got earnings from PepsiCo today, and it tells a very specific story about inflation.
This is the correction part of our theme today. So PepsiCo beat their earnings expectations, but, and this is the key part, their volume was down.
People are finally saying no to the $6 bag of chips.
They are. For a long time, companies could just raise prices to match inflation, and we all kept buying. We grumbled, but we bought. Now, the consumer has hit a wall, and PepsiCo's response, they're actually cutting prices on Lay's, Tostitos, and Doritos.
Finally. I feel like we haven't seen a price cut on a bag of chips in, what, 5 years?
It's a sign that the pricing power of these giants has limits. They have to correct to get the volume back. They can't just rely on inflation anymore. It's a significant signal that the consumer is tapped out.
And while we're talking about consumer health, or maybe the lack thereof, let's talk about the weight loss drugs. This has been the biggest money-printing machine in pharma for 2 years. But today, Novo Nordisk, the maker of Ozempic and Wegovy, took a massive hit.
The stock plummeted. It was down about 14% at one point. They warned that their sales in 2026 are going to decline.
Why? Is the demand drying up? Are people suddenly done wanting to be thin?
It's not the demand, it's the monopoly. They're getting squeezed on price in the U.S. by government pressure, and they are losing exclusivity in markets like China and Canada. The moat is drying up.
And the sharks are circling. I saw Pfizer release some data today on their new drug.
This is the real threat to Novo. Pfizer released phase 2 data for their new obesity injection, PFX 3944. They really need to catch your name. Here is the big differentiator. It's a monthly shot.
Oh, that's a game changer. Wegovy and Zepbound are weekly, right?
Correct. And if you ask any patient, a once-a-month injection is vastly more convenient than a weekly ritual. Pfizer is showing up to 12.3% weight loss with this monthly cadence. So, Novo is getting squeezed on price by the government and squeezed on convenience by competitors.
It's a brutal market, and it just shows that being first doesn't mean you win forever. Speaking of brutal markets, let's talk housing. This is a topic that affects literally everyone listening.
And the data is tough. We saw U.S. homeownership inch up to 65.7%, which sounds good, but affordability is at a multi-decade low. It's just harder than ever to buy your first home because prices and rates are so stubbornly high.
But there was this wild report, and the stock market seemed to buy it, about something called Trump homes.
This is fascinating. So reports are circulating that major home builders like Lennar and Taylor Morrison are working on a plan dubbed Trump homes. Lennar stock jumped 4% on the news.
Okay, what is the actual concept? Is the president out there pouring concrete?
Not quite. The proposal is to sell entry-level homes to investors, think private equity, essentially, who then rent them to tenants. But here's the twist. A portion of that rent counts toward a down payment. It's a rent-to-own pathway aimed at the affordability crisis.
So it's kind of like privatized, investor-backed public housing, in a way.
In a way, it's trying to bridge the gap for people who can't save for a down payment. But it also raises massive questions about corporate ownership of single-family homes. Do we want a future where your landlord is a private equity firm and that's the only path to ownership?
It feels like another consolidation. The housing market moving from individuals to these massive corporate entities. You contrast that with the other story we found in the stack. The couple in Texas.
The tiny home solution.
Right.
This couple built a $32,000 barn dominium-style tiny home in their backyard for the wife's mother.
That is just such a stark contrast. On one side, you have this massive corporate Trump homes initiative systemic top-down. On the other, you have people literally building sheds in their backyard because it's the only way to afford multi-generational living.
It really highlights the desperation in the market. People are finding solutions, whether it's through massive policy shifts or just DIY construction. The middle ground, just buying a house with a mortgage, that's what's disappearing. You either go big corp or you go DIY.
And speaking of policy shifts, we need to check in on Washington. The government is back open, right?
Yes, the House voted to reopen the government, ending that 3-day partial shutdown. The bill is heading to President Trump's desk now.
But tucked in there is something that tax nerds and, people in places like New York and California are going to care a lot about. The SALT deduction.
This is a big financial change. The bill raises the state and local tax or SALT deduction cap to $40,000 for 2025.
It was capped at $10,000 before, right?
Yeah, exactly. This has been a huge pain point for people in high-tax states. If you paid, say, $30,000 in state taxes, you could only deduct $10,000 on your federal return. Now, that cap is quadrupling, so if you live in a high-tax state and you itemize your taxes, this is a significant tax break coming your way.
Right.
It's a reversal of a policy from the first Trump term, interestingly enough.
D.C. is never boring. There's also this brewing controversy with the intelligence community. Senator Mark Warner is calling for DNI Tulsi Gabbard to testify. What's going on there?
This all stems from an incident in Georgia. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was apparently present at an FBI raid on a Georgia election office, and this was regarding 2020 election records.
The DNI at a local FBI raid? That seems unusual. The DNI usually deals with foreign threats, not county election offices.
Senator Warner thinks so, too. He's concerned specifically that Gabbard facilitated a phone call between the FBI agents on the scene and President Trump. Gabbard's defense is that her presence was requested by the president, and she was just there to observe.
And this ties into some comments the president made recently about elections, right?
It does. Trump suggested in an interview that Republicans should take over and nationalize elections, and that has sparked a lot of debate on Capitol Hill about federal overreach into what's typically a state-run process.
It feels like the line between state and federal and between intelligence and politics is getting very blurry.
Which goes right back to our theme of consolidation. Power is being centralized, whether it's in corporate mergers or federal election oversight. We're seeing a move away from distributed power.
Okay, shifting gears to the international stage, because we can't ignore what's happening overseas. There was a military incident involving Iran.
A pretty serious escalation. A U.S. F-35 jet launching from the USS Abraham Lincoln shot down an Iranian drone in the Arabian Sea.
The report said it aggressively approached the carrier.
Right. And this comes at a time when the administration is trying to balance military strength with economic incentives. Because look at the other headline. We're hearing reports that the Trump administration is considering issuing a general license for U.S. oil companies to produce in Venezuela.
Wait, so we are shooting down drones in the Middle East, but opening up oil production in Venezuela?
It's a carrot and stick approach.
Yeah.
Following the capture of former President Maduro in January, the U.S. wants to spur investment there. They need the oil flowing to keep prices down, remember our correction theme. They need energy prices stable to keep the consumer happy. So they're willing to deal with Venezuela while maintaining a hard line in the Gulf.
It's a complex board game, real politics in action. Let's finish up with something a little lighter. Entertainment and sports. Disney finally has a name for the throne.
The successor to Bob Iger has been named. It is Josh D'Amaro.
He's the parks guy, right? Not the movie guy.
He is. He's the current chairman of Disney Experiences. He takes over as CEO on March 18th. And this is a signal, I think, that Disney values the operator mindset right now.
Why do you think that is? I would have thought with streaming being so huge, they'd pick a media person.
It's about the money. The parks are a $60 billion investment area for them. It's their cash cow. They need someone who understands that physical, on-the-ground experience. Streaming is competitive and low margin. Parks are unique and high margin. They're betting on the tangible asset over the digital one.
Which leads us to the NFL. Super Bowl is this Sunday, but the drama is off the field. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, got snubbed for the Hall of Fame.
Along with Bill Belichick. It's pretty surprising given their record 6 Super Bowls. Kraft was on CNBC, and honestly, he played it cool. He said his focus is solely on winning the Super Bowl this Sunday.
Which, to be fair, is a pretty good consolation prize if they pull it off. But there was one more nugget about sports in the stack that I thought was fascinating.
Yes, from investor Ian Charles. He made the point that AI is going to supercharge sports team valuations.
How does AI help a football team's value? Is the quarterback going to be a robot?
Not quite yet. It's about scarcity. In a fragmented media world where we have TikTok, Netflix, YouTube, and now orbital data centers generating infinite AI content, live sports is the only appointment viewing left.
That's so true. I can watch a Netflix show whenever I want, but I have to watch the game now.
Exactly. It's the only thing that guarantees millions of eyeballs at a specific time. And that scarcity makes it incredibly valuable to advertisers. In a world where AI can generate infinite content for free, the value of real, live, human competition just goes through the roof.
That makes perfect sense. In a world of infinite AI content, the only thing that matters is what's happening right now, in the real world.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's just recap quickly before we let people go.
Sure. We have Musk merging space and AI into a trillion-dollar behemoth. We have Ray Dalio warning of a capital war and investors fleeing to gold. We have Pepsi cutting snack prices because the consumer wallet is finally snapped shut. And we have the government reopening with new tax rules and, well, new controversies.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
So what does this all mean? What is the takeaway for the listener on their commute right now?
You know, I keep going back to that image of the orbital data center.
Yeah.
We are seeing a massive consolidation of systems. Space and AI are merging. Housing policy and private equity are merging with concepts like Trump homes. The line between tech infrastructure and national security is blurring.
It feels like everything is becoming one giant interconnected machine.
It does. And the provocative thought I want to leave you with is this. As these massive systems integrate and consolidate, where does the individual fit in? Are we just users of the orbital data center? Are we just tenants in the private equity home?
Are we driving the car, or are we just passengers in the Waymo?
Right. And I think the tiny home story gives us a hint. Sometimes you have to build your own solution in your own backyard, literally, to maintain your agency. The big systems are correcting, but the individual still has to carve out their own space.
I love that. A little rebellion in the backyard. Thank you for that insight. And thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and we will see you next time.